Welcome. You're tuned into Tangled Threads. If you're digging our content, hit the like button and subscribe. Thank you. Hey, fellow Redditors, buckle up, because today's tale is a blend of Beethoven and a conspiracy theory. My life has recently begun to sound like a thriller movie, or maybe a bad soap opera, complete with background music, piano music to be precise. For some context, my son has been taking piano lessons every week. Pretty standard stuff, right? But here's where things take a turn. The piano teacher, let's call him Mr. Sonata, conveniently happens to be my wife's newfound confidant. They seem to be hitting the right notes together, if you catch my drift. After my son's lessons, I've noticed they've been spending a good chunk of time at Mr. Sonata's house. My wife insists it's because our son loves playing with Mr. Sonata's kids. Seems innocent enough. Yet this would imply my wife and Mr. Sonata are in the house alone, as his wife is conveniently at work. This scenario strikes a dissonant chord in my brain, not because I inherently distrust them, but because it's an unusual situation. The plot thickens. One day, our son made a comment that they were late because mom spent a lot of time in their bathroom. Now, for the record, my wife would sooner face a grizzly bear than do a number 2 at someone else's house. So what could she be doing in there? Perhaps discussing the profound nature of life or the chaos of existence? Unlikely, but one can hope. Decided to play a bit of Sherlock and asked my wife about her extended bathroom sojourns. Rather than a clear response, I was met with noticeable tension. Imagine my surprise. This isn't a Dostoevsky novel, it's real life, but her reaction was telling. The piece de resistance was when I brought up Mr. Sonata's wife. Now, according to my wife, Mrs. Sonata is never around during these extended visits because of her job. Odd, isn't it? Their lessons are at 1:30 p.m., but Mrs. Sonata doesn't return until the evening. Either she's a secret agent, or something doesn't quite add up. Now, I'm not about to rush to conclusions. There's a fine line between intuition and paranoia. It's easy to fall into the chaos of distrust, especially when fueled by subtle hints and vague events. But the pursuit of truth is essential. Before jumping to conclusions or burning bridges, one must investigate, understand, and then make an informed decision. This whole situation is a bigger mystery than why people watch 5-hour Twitch streams of someone just sleeping. I'm going to keep digging, Reddit. Not in a creepy, lurking in the shadows kind of way, but in a genuine pursuit of truth way. Wish me luck or just send piano song recommendations. Either works. Here is his first update. Hey, Reddit, remember me? The guy suspicious of his wife's mysterious piano lessons? Well, the plot has thickened more than a bowl of oatmeal, and boy, do I have an update for you. Not one to let mysteries fester, I took some advice from the espionage greats, went James Bond minus the dashing good looks and martinis, and got myself a tiny audio recorder. Long battery life and everything. I know it's sketchy, but desperate times call for desperate melodies. I managed to slip it into an inside pocket of my son's backpack, hoping for some insight into these post-lesson hangouts. So the deed was done, the trap was set, and I waited. The tension was palpable, like waiting for the bass drop in a song you've never heard before. The next day at work, with the giddy excitement of a child unwrapping presents, I locked my office door and downloaded Audacity. For the uninitiated, it's a free audio editing software and quite intuitive for newbies like me. With bated breath, I began to sift through the recordings, enhancing muffled audio here and there. Laughter, chit-chat, and benign conversations initially filled the airwaves. Nothing too concerning. However, midway through, there was an abrupt silence, the ominous kind. It felt like the quiet before a storm, and I braced myself. Suddenly, the serene ambiance was shattered by a cacophony on the piano. Imagine pressing every key with immense force. Was it an avant-garde performance? Did someone trip? I could only speculate. But then I heard that sound. A moan, a gasp, and the sound of what seemed like 2 people in a hasty exit. My heart raced, my stomach turned, and a bitter taste filled my mouth. The clarity I sought came crashing down, confirming my worst fears. Now, I'm not a man of blind rage, but the need for confrontation and, dare I say, revenge coursed through my veins. I'll admit, Reddit, I'm at a loss. The weight of betrayal is heavy, and while revenge might be a dish best served cold, I'm burning up. What's next? A confrontation, certainly. But after that, only time will tell. Here are 2 responses that he received. Response 1. Hey OP, I understand how damning that recording might seem, and your feelings of betrayal and hurt are valid. However, I would still suggest not jumping to immediate conclusions. Audio can be misleading, especially without context. It might be best to approach your wife calmly, share your concerns and the evidence you've collected, and listen to her side of the story. There could be explanations you haven't considered. Making hasty decisions based solely on a few ambiguous sounds might lead to regret later. Be sure of everything before taking any drastic steps. Response 2. Referencing the previous comment here, but honestly, there's no jumping to conclusions. The conclusions just slapped OP in the face. Mate, it sounds like she's cheating, and it's as clear as day. If I were in your shoes, I'd be getting ready to drop her like a sack of rotten potatoes. Why prolong the agony? Confront her, get to the truth, and think about what's best for you and your son. You deserve better. Here's his final update. Hey Reddit, it's me again, back with the final act of this heart-wrenching concerto. If you thought the previous acts were a roller coaster, hold on tight because this one's a plunge. Upon hearing the audio, I had an insatiable urge to validate the authenticity of the evidence, but I wanted to do it in a way that would also exact some much-deserved revenge. So I bottled up my fury and waited an entire week until the day of my son's next piano lesson. The day had finally come. The piano teacher's wife, Mrs. Sonata, was my target. I left work in a flurry, driven by emotion, and marched into her office at the school district. I was met with a combination of confusion and hostility. She looked me up and down, perhaps sizing up my intentions. Tentatively, I broached the topic of our spouses' meetings. At first, she seemed in denial, with emotions ranging from disbelief to sadness. I persisted, urging her to hear the recording, promising clarity. After a tearful listen, the sorrow swiftly transformed into a fierce rage. It seemed we had unwittingly formed an alliance in heartbreak and anger. The next moments were a blur. We found ourselves driving to her house, intending to confront our cheating spouses in what I can only describe as a joint mission of fury. The house greeted us with eerie silence, broken only by the innocent laughter of kids playing outside. As we ventured further in, unmistakable sounds reached our ears, sounds that shattered any lingering hopes of innocence. Bursting into the master bedroom, the scene before us was one of sheer guilt. There they were, our spouses, naked, startled, and scrambling for cover. A maelstrom of emotion swirled inside me, anger being the most dominant. The room exploded in chaos, Mrs. Sonata hurling objects at her husband while I unleashed a torrent of words on my wife. In a fit of misplaced anger, the piano teacher threw something, accidentally hitting me. Red with rage, I couldn't restrain myself. I unleashed a flurry of blows onto him, ensuring he felt every ounce of pain I did. I somehow managed to keep the shots to his body, thinking of the children and how they didn't need to see their father with a messed up face. So I kept his trauma hidden, mainly in his ribcage. Amidst the chaos, I took a moment to capture a few pictures, potential evidence for future battles. Taking control, I ordered my wife to dress and to get her ass home. I went outside and surprised my son, telling him of an impromptu visit to his grandma's. He was excited. On the way there, I also told him that Mr. Sonata was not going to be giving him lessons anymore. He was sad for a moment because he truly loved playing with his children, but that sadness washed away quickly with a slice of Grandma's fresh-baked apple pie. Returning home, the atmosphere was tense. My wife's pleas echoed through the house, but they fell on deaf ears. She cried, she pleaded, she apologized. I told her to shut her filthy mouth, and then I dialed my lawyer's number right there and then, kick-starting the end of our union. The wheels of the divorce process had began to turn. She moved in with her mother, having been a stay-at-home wife. Alimony was inevitable, and while I lamented its necessity, it was a price to pay. Looking back, I mused on the prudence of prenuptial agreements, the follies of youth, I suppose. Had I known, but when you're young, you never think of your world turning into a nightmare such as this. Mrs. Sonata divorced her husband as well. She called me one day and told me how she tried to get them into counseling and to keep their family together, but in the end, he was an ass, and so she just insisted on a divorce. As the dust settled in my life, custody of our son was equally shared. Each exchange is marked by polite indifference. The woman I once loved was now completely foreign to me, making me question if I ever really knew her at all. This painful journey has reshaped my perspectives on love and trust. And while the future remains uncertain, one thing is clear. I'll be wary of piano lessons. Well, there you have it, folks. Another marriage went down in the flames of infidelity. I guess he handled that pretty well. Paying alimony to someone who knowingly and willingly destroyed the marriage seems so unfair. It seems as if the court systems treat some aspects of marriages like hard contracts, while other items are treated as if they don't carry any weight at all. Anyway, how do you feel that he did? Let us know in the comments section below. When you subscribe, be sure to click the notification bell. Click here for more Tangled threads.